If you're a founder of a scaling startup and you have this feeling that the harder the situation gets, the easier it is, with a single sentence, to lose trust you've been building for years, then this episode is for you. My name is Agnieszka Jurczyk. I work with founders, also in moments of crisis, when every word carries more weight than we'd like, and the absence of clear communication only amplifies the chaos. In today's episode of Founder 2.0, we'll talk about leadership communication that doesn't just calm people down for a moment, but builds authority and trust over the long term, especially when the conversation gets genuinely difficult. Let's go, shall we? Sylvia stands outside the conference room, palms sweaty, shirt glued to her spine, heart beating so hard she can feel it in her throat. Salaries should have gone out yesterday. They didn't. Through the door, she hears her VPs. Low voices, sharp edges, uncertain. That specific tone of people trying to stay calm and completely failing. Sylvia wipes her hand on her jeans, repeating like a mantra a line she stole from a podcast. The emotional tone of a meeting is the tone the leader sets. She straightens her back, forces her shoulders down, takes one slow breath, and opens the door. They don't even let her sit. What are we supposed to tell our teams? Does this mean we've run out of cash? How late are we talking? Why are we only finding out now? Sylvia raises her hands, trying to summon the empathy she'd been rehearsing all morning. I hear you, she begins softly, nodding like a pastor at a funeral. I really deeply hear your concerns. People glance at each other. Ops sighs, biz dev rolls his eyes. Sylvia looks at the CFO, but no support there. He's suddenly fascinated by his shoes. Sylvia replays the podcast in her head. Share a personal journey to inspire confidence. Okay, personal journey. Maybe it will somehow help her turn this catastrophe into a motivational TED Talk. It's all under control, she begins, pitching her voice into that inspirational speaker register. Let me walk you through it. And off she goes, the calls to Singapore and New York at 3 a.m., the heroic negotiations with the client's treasury, the fight for every hour, words tumbling one after another, every obstacle thrown in her path, every frantic move when none of the options felt good. Step by step, minute by minute, the entire saga of her sleepless night. Finally, someone slaps her with the question they all came here for. Can we guarantee payments within 48 hours? Sylvia swallows. I mean, that's the plan. The plan or the promise? A crack appears in her voice. She tries to plaster over it with more words. I was on the phone till 3 a.m. We are doing whatever we can. Just trust me, okay? More silence. Not the supportive kind. The kind that presses you against the wall and leaves no room to breathe. Like a prosecutor waiting for you to crack and finally admit you're guilty. Sylvia keeps talking, faster, trying to outrun their eyes. She launches into a wall of explanations, swift queues, treasury batching, time zone delays, the client's intercompany workflows. Technical fog no one asked for and no one finds reassuring. The room stiffens. Sylvia pivots again. It's not like anyone's gonna quit over being paid one day late, right? Her laugh is thin, brittle, awkward beyond saving. The CPO shifts uncomfortably. BizDev clears his throat. HR is picking at her nails, and finance is still staring at his shoes. Someone finally breaks the silence. Should we prepare some kind of message to calm people down? Sylvia's patience snaps. I said it's under control. The words land like a slap. Too sharp, too final. Silence floods a conference room like dust after an explosion. The meeting ends with nods. Not the kind that means that makes sense, only the mechanical kind that can only be read as, let's just go, there's nothing to say here. They file out, murmuring, okay, sure, let's hope so, while their eyes say the opposite. As the door closes behind the last VP, a quiet exchange drifts from the corridor. Did that reassure you? No, not really. Sylvia stays behind, alone at the big table, hands shaking. She did everything she could, stayed up all night calling across half the world, begged Treasury to accelerate the transfer, solved every problem that was solvable, and still she feels guilty. Insufficient, incompetent, like she's the last person on earth who should be running a company. Her phone buzzes. General channel. Brace yourselves. This is going to be messy. But it could be different. Imagine the same conference room. Same tension humming behind the door. Same problem, salaries delayed. But this time, Sylvia walks in calm. She speaks first, before the questions can avalanche down on her. No lengthy preamble, no fillers. Before we begin, I want you to know that I understand how uncomfortable this is for you. That's why I want you to have the full picture. People sit up, and Sylvia continues. A payment from our largest client bounced at the treasury stage in their head office, which knocked back our payroll transfer. We've verified this with their CFO. It's not a liquidity issue. It's just a timing issue with subsidiary payments. Rather than wait for those to clear, we'll convert euros. Salaries will be processed on Wednesday by noon. No defensiveness. No explaining herself like a defendant in court. No hiding behind jargon nobody wants or needs to understand. Just facts. Sylvia continues. I need each of you to prepare your teams for this delay. I'll send a communication template within 15 minutes of this meeting ending. And if any of your people come to you with concerns, tell them this. No one's job is at risk. This is a technical delay, not a financial problem. The company is stable. The situation is under control. One of the VPs asks, is there any scenario where this slips further? Unlikely, Sylvia answers calmly, but yes, there is. And if that happens, you'll hear it from me before you hear it from anyone else. No surprises. People nod with genuine relief. Someone says, thanks, consistent messaging will really help. And Sylvia feels it too. Authority without forcing it through sales tricks from 40 years ago. Trust without having to ask for it. Leadership without panic. Her phone buzzes. Key team channel. Ops team informed, all good. Sylvia smiles, because this time she believes it's all good too. Before we go further, a quick ask. If what I'm talking about here resonates with where you are right now and you'd like to hear more, hit subscribe. A thumbs up on this video would also mean a lot. In return, I'll keep making more content about how to scale a business without losing your mind along the way. Thank you for every bit of support. Have you ever noticed this pattern? When communication breaks down at the leadership level, it almost always comes down to one root cause. You start talking before you actually know what you want to say. And that ruins leadership communication on 3 different levels. Level 1. You don't have a direction yet, so instead of addressing the issue directly, you dance around it. That's when these patterns appear. You're vague. Lots of words, very little substance. You bluff, because silence feels scarier than guessing. You overpromise, because you want people off your back so you can finally sit down and figure things out. You leave questions unanswered, hoping that no one notices. You get pulled into someone else's agenda because yours is still forming in real time. In short, you're not leading the meeting. The meeting is leading you. Level 2. You don't know what to do with any of it yet, so you communicate from emotion, not from direction. When the brain has no plan, the nervous system takes the wheel. That's when you talk too much, betting on quantity rather than quality. You avoid eye contact because you're afraid that someone will call your bluff. You try to sound reassuring, even though you're not convinced or calm yourself. You try to look composed, but the whole room feels your stress. You try to project confidence, but everyone feels your hesitation. You're acting, and everyone can see it, except you. Level 3. Emotions take over, so the message starts being about you, not for the people you're speaking to. When fear kicks in, ego steps in. Not because you're selfish, but because your body is trying to protect you. And then, often without realizing it, you start talking to soothe yourself instead of leading others. You confuse empathy with reciting scripted phrases instead of actually being empathetic and genuinely listening. You bury people in jargon to sound competent. You minimize the problem because your own embarrassment about it is too much to carry. You focus on how much you've already done, instead of clearly saying what needs to happen and who needs to do it. You deflect blame because shame is too heavy to hold alone. You reject uncomfortable suggestions because losing control feels like being exposed as the emperor with no clothes. You're in a firefighting mode, survival mode, stress, overwhelm. Remember episode 1? And here's something leaders often underestimate. Your team feels the mismatch. On the verbal level, you're saying everything is under control. But your body language is saying, please help me, I'm drowning. And when words and energy contradict each other, credibility suffers. Trust drops, authority evaporates. Because from the team's perspective, it looks like this. Not only do you not have the answer, you can't even stand in front of them and honestly admit that you don't. So they nod. They say, okay, sure. But inside, they walk away unsure, unconvinced, unaligned. So what do most leaders do when they start noticing these symptoms in themselves? They diagnose a communication problem. Then they binge podcasts and articles looking for magic phrases to cure it. And that's exactly when everything starts going sideways. There's a very common misunderstanding that gets a lot of leaders into serious trouble. Somewhere along the way, people start confusing good leadership communication with good storytelling, and building authority with building narrative. Good storytelling is dramatic. It has rising tension. A hero facing almost impossible odds. David and Goliath, the phoenix rising from the ashes. Perfect for TED. Perfect for conferences. Perfect for LinkedIn posts where someone writes, "We were almost dead 7 times, but look at us now." The thing is, a conference room is not a cinema, and your stakeholders are not your audience. At work, people don't want drama. They don't want plot twists. They don't want to be forced into heroism. At work, people need direction, stability, predictability. They want to feel that their leader genuinely has both hands on the wheel, knows where they're going, and knows how to get there. And yet, many CEOs still communicate like action movie heroes. They stride into the meeting, and before the door has even closed behind them, they're already building tension, delivering monologues about the battle they're in, sharing details no one needs, promising heroic saves, and wondering why trust and authority are quietly dissolving somewhere in the background. Endless firefighting may make for a great story, but it has nothing to do with real leadership. Leadership communication isn't about making a good impression. It's about orienting people, showing them the direction. Because while survival stories inspire listeners outside your company, for those inside the company, they're simply exhausting. Leadership is not a performance genre. Nobody comes to work to applaud your fight scenes. People don't want to be extras in your war movie. They want a job where they can do something meaningful without constantly bracing for impact and wondering which direction the next blow is coming from. Investors don't invest in hero sagas. They invest in traction, not turbulence. In leaders who manage reality, not narrate their way around it. Nobody wires millions to watch a founder heroically battle adversity. They wire those millions to people who can face those adversities and actually turn a profit in the process. The fewer unpredictable plot twists, the lower the risk. And the lower the risk, yes, exactly, the higher the valuation of your company. Customers don't pay you for adrenaline either. They pay you for reliability. They want a supplier who delivers results, not one who delivers monologues. They don't care that you pulled another all-nighter. They care that your product works. Every day, quietly, and so boringly reliably that there's nothing to talk about. Authority doesn't come from adrenaline. Trust isn't built by narrating your battle against adversity. Both come from something far less flashy. Making the complex feel simple, making the uncertain feel navigable, and giving people enough safety so they can focus on their work instead of preparing for a supporting role in the next drama. Martin Gutmann said in a great TED Talk that good leadership is boring. Hard to disagree. Boring may not work well on social media, that's true, but inside a company, boring is what competent management looks like. Nothing builds authority and trust faster than a leader who stops building a narrative about reality and starts shaping it in a predictable way, boring way. So let's talk about how to build trust and authority through exactly that kind of boring. If what happens when you walk into a room unprepared and try to build authority through rhetoric is communication 1.0, then communication 2.0 is what happens when you walk into a room prepared and let clarity about the direction do all the heavy lifting for you. Think of it this way. Communication 1.0 is a reaction to crisis. It tries to soothe tension, smooth over conflict that's already erupted. Impress when you sense that losing control might damage your authority. Convince when you expect to be speaking to the unconvinced. Communication 1.0 is primarily about form, not substance. Communication 2.0, on the other hand, puts substance first. Not talking about being in control, but showing that you actually are. Communication 2.0 starts from direction. What people need to do, what they need to know in order to be able to do it, and what they need in order to feel safe enough to actually do it. Communication 1.0 resolves around you. Your stress, your reputation, your fear, your guilt, your need to show that you're still managing. Communication 2.0 centers on the people you're speaking to. the context that they are operating in, the decisions that affect their work, the next steps that involve them, and ultimately whether they can trust you enough to follow your lead into the unknown. Communication 1.0 focuses on releasing pressure. Communication 2.0, on the other hand, focuses on building shared understanding. Communication 1.0 is emotional leakage dressed up as passionate leadership. Communication 2.0 is keeping your emotions in check through clarity about what comes next and building your message on that foundation. Communication 1.0 is like wrapping a kilo of bitter, out-of-date sweets into a bright wrapper with a new best before date. Communication 2.0 is telling people where the bitter sweets came from in the first place, what eating them will actually achieve, who needs to eat how many, by when, and above all, what you're going to do so the next batch of sweets contains something far more fit for consumption. And here's what many people find surprising. Communication 2.0 is not about speaking well. It's about thinking well before you speak. Because once you're clear on the next steps, your sentences naturally sound more confident, your tone naturally steadies, your credibility naturally strengthens. You don't need no storytelling. You don't need to perform the role of a leader. You don't need rhetorical tricks from LinkedIn gurus or podcast one-liners about setting the tone. What you need is 4 simple things. Just 4. First, you need clarity about next steps. Before you speak, you need to know what exactly the situation is, what happens next, who's responsible for what, and when and about what you will communicate. Second, you need calm. Not calm performed for an audience, not smiling through clenched teeth, just regulated enough to think clearly. Third, you need a short message. Direct, specific, unambiguous, free of your own emotional residue. And fourth, you need a Q&A that you can actually run. Not defensively, not through storytelling, not drowning in technicalities, just honestly, and without pretending, answering what matters and parking what can wait. Communication 2.0 isn't flashy. And that's exactly why it works. Because authority and trust don't come from admiration for your performance. They come from a sense that you know what you're doing. People follow the leader who doesn't wobble when things wobble, who speaks from clarity about next steps, not from adrenaline, who shows with every sentence, I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to lead you. People follow a leader who isn't just an actor on stage, but a real guide on a journey. That's the shift. So let's look at it more closely. As we've established, communication 2.0 is not about how you speak. It's not about speaking louder, not about sounding smarter, not about being more motivating. It's about what you have to say. It's about the foundations on which you build your message. Because once you know what you have to say, actually saying it becomes much simpler. So let's talk about the 4 foundations that can transform any high-pressure conversation from an emotional roller coaster into a stabilizer. Foundation 1 is an unambiguous picture of the situation. In other words, facts. Facts, not opinions, not interpretations from different angles, not your emotions, not the whole history from the beginning of time or a 48-hour saga spanning 12 Slack threads and ending with the CFO slamming the door. Just what exactly happened, what we know for certain and what we definitely don't know yet. When you name things clearly and unambiguously, you send people a simple signal. I'm not hiding from reality. I'm taking it on. I'm here to show you what it actually looks like and to guide you through it. This orientation in reality is exactly where building authority begins. Foundation 2 is the impact of the situation on people. This is where trust enters, because people don't need leaders who pretend a problem isn't such a big deal. They need leaders who understand what the problem actually means. Not for the leader, for them. So you don't need pathos, you don't need clever quotes, you don't need to sound like a presidential candidate. Just name the consequences honestly. For the company, this means X. For your teams, this means Y. That's enough. Because when people feel seen, they stop bracing for the worst and start actually listening. Foundation 3 is the direction. This is where leadership crystallizes. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need an ambitious 5-year vision. You just need the next step and the reasoning behind it. This is the direction, this is where it comes from, here's what happens next. Even if the direction means we need 24 hours to gather the data before we make the call. That's enough. Because direction doesn't mean knowing everything or seeing every step for miles ahead. It just means knowing what to do here and now. Teams don't need omniscience. They just need a leader who draws the next arrow on the map. Foundation 4 is a clear call to action. This is the moment where communication becomes coordination and words become action. Because leaders don't speak to impress. Leaders speak to align and move things forward. The call to action defines clearly what you need from each person in the room, what they can count on from you, and how you'll stay in sync. No vagueness. No, let me know if anything comes up. No hand wavy, just keep me posted. A clear call to action turns listeners into contributors and contributors into owners. Put these 4 foundations together. An unambiguous picture of the situation, the impact of the situation on people, the direction, and a clear call to action, and you have a communication system that your team can rely on even in genuinely difficult moments. Because authority is rarely built in calm times, and lasting trust doesn't stand on charisma. They're built when the reality gets loud and your voice gets clear. So let's make this practical. Let's take everything we've talked about so far and put it into one coherent whole. Picture this. The call just ended. You're standing in the corridor, phone still in your hand, mind completely blank. Your expected Series A negotiations just collapsed. The deal you were 95% certain about. Term sheet signed months ago. Due diligence completed successfully. Key clauses agreed. You'd even managed to persuade your seed investor to accept a leak pref. You never would have thought that a deal could break over reserved matters. And yet it did. Your team had quietly assumed that the round was practically closed. Runway was planned against it. Hiring plans, product milestones, everything. How on earth are you supposed to tell them that you're back to square one with only 3 months of cash left? Let's do it together. Here's communication to zero in practice. A step-by-step map you can use anytime a difficult conversation is waiting for you. Step 1 is clear direction. Stop and think before you say anything to anyone. And in order to think clearly, regulate your nervous system first. Episode 1, remember? 3 deep breaths. And now let's run the 4 foundations. Foundation 1 is the situation. Facts only, no opinions, no storytelling, no justifications, no emotional glaze. The lead investor withdrew this morning. The round is no longer moving forward with them. That's it. Short, to the point. If you made a mistake, this is the moment to own it. First, to yourself. For example, it looks like I pushed too hard on the existing shareholders' rights regarding reserved matters. That may have contributed. I'm taking that on the chin. Short, surgical, clean. And it matters that you are taking it on the chin, not the previous round investors, not the lawyers, you, because you made the call. Foundation 2, impact. How does this affect them, not you? Closing the round may shift in time, and that affects our runway. There will be uncertainty. People may worry about job security, about whether salaries will come on time. That's normal. Name those emotions before they flood the room. Uncertainty, worry, fear. Put them into words. Let them land in your own head first, before they land implicitly in the behavior of the people you're about to speak to. Foundation 3 is direction. What you're going to do about it. Not everything will be fine. Not we'll figure it out, my personal favorite. No long monologues about the future. Just the immediate steps. Who else can you talk to about the investment? What alternatives do you have? What can you do if you don't close the round in 3 months? Remember, naming the direction gives people a sense of relative safety, even when the road ahead is really steep. Foundation 4, call to action. Now that you know what can be done, it's time to establish who does what. In our example, let's say you take responsibility for talking to investors and your CFO updates the financial plan in 3 scenarios. What needs to change if the round closes in 4 months? What if it's 6? And what if it's 9? How much cash are you going to need? Where could this cash come from? If you don't know this yet, perfect, because now you know what you need to find out. That's not a reason to panic, that's just a task to execute. Step 2, calm. You can't control other people's emotions, but what you can control is the setting you choose for this conversation and your own state before you speak. Choose a calm, deliberate setting, not a corridor, not one quick word before your next call, not a WhatsApp message out of context, sent from a taxi, a pavement, or a bathroom. Yes, founders do this more often than you'd think. Choose a quiet room, closed door, and somewhere for everyone to sit. The environment is half the message. And before you start talking, take a deep breath. Look after your own calm first. Step 3, deliver the message. Short, clear, unambiguous. If someone wrote it on a whiteboard, it should fit in 1 block of text. You've already prepared it. In step 1. The situation. The lead investor withdrew this morning. The round is no longer moving forward with them. It looks like I pushed too hard on reserved matters. That may have contributed. I'm taking it on the chin. The impact. This affects our runway. It will create uncertainty for you and your teams. Some people may worry about job security. That's normal. We'll address this directly. The direction. Here's what's happening next. Today, I'm speaking with 3 alternative leads. Tomorrow, the CFO and I will revise scenarios A, B, and C. On Friday, I'll update you with next steps and a communication plan for your teams. And the ask. Until Friday, please hold off on communicating anything, but stay close to your teams. For now, no one knows but you. But if questions come up anyway, direct people straight to me. That's it. Minimum words, maximum authority and trust. Clarity, not performance. That's communication to 0. And step 4, be ready for questions. People will test your clarity here, not deliberately, biologically. They're scanning for safety. Someone may ask, what if we don't secure funding in 3 months? You may answer, I don't know yet. I will know by Friday. Let's talk about the details then. Someone else may ask, will we need to freeze hiring? You can say, possibly, but I don't know yet. We'll model it, and I'll come back to you on Friday. And if they ask, what do we tell our teams? You can say, for now, nothing. We'll align on Friday once we know exactly where we stand. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're not playing a role. You're not pretending to see through the fog. You're simply guiding people through that fog, seeing as far as you can see. And that is leadership communication. So, are you up for a small challenge? Nothing enormous, something you can absolutely do this week. Think of one conversation that you've been putting off. One that's been sitting in the back of your mind because you know it will be hard, uncomfortable, maybe emotional. Maybe it's a conversation with the team about difficult changes. Maybe a conversation with a key leader who isn't delivering. Maybe a conversation about killing a project that someone cares deeply about, but that no longer fits current priorities. Or simply any conversation you've been dreading because you feel that you don't have all the answers yet. Now, open a blank document or take a piece of paper. A phone note works as well. And prepare for that conversation using the 4 pillars that we've discussed today. 1. Situation. 1 or 2 sentences, pure facts. No storytelling, no emotion. 2. Impact. What does this situation actually mean? Not for you, though, for the people you'll be speaking to. 3. Direction. What's the next step? Even if it is, we need 48 hours to figure this out. 4. Call to action. What specifically do you need and from whom? And what can people count on from you? When will you think? If your message is longer than half a page of A4, it's not ready yet. Try to shorten it. Then choose a calm setting for the conversation. And go in prepared. Look after your own calm first. Before you begin, take 3 deep breaths. And if you want to go in with notes open on your laptop, do exactly that. Your calm is the foundation. Now let clarity about the direction do the work for you. Say what you have to say, listen to the questions, answer them calmly. Don't improvise, don't bluff, don't be afraid to say that you don't know. Just say when you will know. And after the meeting, notice the difference in how people you spoke to reacted, in how many questions came up, in the level of tension in the room, and most importantly, in your own state when it was over. To start with, just 1 conversation, but do it differently than usual. And let me know in the comments how it went. Good luck! In the next episode of Founder to Zero, we'll tackle something that quietly consumes the most energy in growing companies: team conflict. We'll talk about why conflicts rarely start with emotions and much more often with badly designed roles, poorly defined boundaries, or unclear expectations, and how to prevent them before your company turns into a permanent arena of turf wars. If you'd like to go deeper on crisis communication or find out what working together one-on-one might look like in a safe, confidential setting and without cheap pop coaching slogans, you'll find the contact link below this video. And if this episode was useful, leave a comment, like, share, subscribe. It genuinely helps me make more content like this. That's it for today. Take care, and see you in the next episode.